First of all, thank you all for being here today. I'm Alex Marion. I'm Syracuse City Auditor. Please be joined by Police Chief Joe Cecil. And I'm here to tell you today about our latest report, which I'm calling Sworn to Protect. That is a study of police department staffing, the Syracuse Police Department. So, let me give you a little bit of background on the study itself. In 2022, the Common Council authorized $300,000 for a study of police staffing and assigned it to the Office of the City Auditor to oversee the study. An RFP process was conducted and the winning bid was issued to the Matrix Consulting Group out of San Diego, California. Now, what they produced is an over 160-page, 85-plus recommendation study, and what my office has also done is condense that into a roughly 20-page companion report that puts it in a little more laid language for everyone. So we've condensed that also into 8 major thematic areas and 10 priority recommendations so that it's a little clearer where some of the big areas that the police department, I think, is interested in pursuing will be. But before we get too far into this, I want to be clear what this study does not say. It does not have a magic number of police officers that the city of Syracuse should have. Because there is no magic number. There is no one number that a few officers more and you live in a perfect utopia, a few officers less and you wander into the purge. Because that's not how policing works in modern America. The right answer is how you use your resources efficiently and effectively. And that's what this report focuses on. We cover 8 themes overall: sworn officer assignments, civilian assignments, departmental organization, data tracking, professional development, coordination with other agencies, reporting of public information, and scheduling. From there, we delved into 10 priority recommendations that can inform the department's decision-making going forward. And these are issues with a lot of consensus, and in many cases, a good path forward to some meaningful outcomes. And our priority recommendations are: implement recommended changes to sworn staffing. Because what we see is a lot of officers who oversee activities that are not law enforcement specific. Some examples include parking enforcement, crossing guards, ordinance enforcement. And if you know, in my report earlier this year on parking tickets, we recommended civilianizing the parking enforcement work and taking it out of the police department and moving it towards another department. We also have developing a regional approach to mental health, where the city of Syracuse leads the way, convening leaders from across the county and different agencies to address mental health issues and create a good screening process so that the right resources are being allocated to those calls and to those cases. Continuing our work towards civilianization where appropriate and where it makes sense. The consultants at Matrix found more than 20 areas where civilianization could happen, including functions like evidence collection. Our community service officers may in some areas be a good bridge for providing those to civilianizing some of those areas. And this is already an ongoing process, and I know an ongoing priority of Chief Cecil. Earlier today I had a meeting on some other issues with Deputy Chief Shaw, where he was telling me how successfully they had civilianized an IT role from sworn officer to a civilian position, and it's worked out very well there. Some of these areas may have a bit of a longer runway, because in the rest of city government, we may not have the capacity to move all of these employees over to another function, which is understood, and I get it, but I think this is a longer-term vision we can look towards. We can see improvements to the website and public reporting. We also are recommending the acquisition and implementation of a case management system and a procedural manual to go along with that. Because right now, we see the police department using spreadsheets to track caseloads and case files, and a new modern software system may create more efficiency. Again, a way in which we can use our existing resources smarter and better. Working with the Onondaga County to make improvements to 911 prioritization. There's so many calls that are currently coded as priority 2 would be coded as priority 2 or be coded as priority 1, creating a larger need for a response. This next one is one of my favorites, creating the City of Syracuse Police Department Civil Service List. Currently, when prospective officers take the civil service test, the list comes out and all the departments are competing against each other for those same employees. We're recommending a City of Syracuse exclusive police officer test so that folks who have a specific interest in urban policing, who want to be Syracuse police officers, are taking that test, and we can put that to work for our department. Additionally, creating a new administrative bureau, reassigning non-police functions to other departments. Right now, we see a number of administrative functions here at the department, overseen by law enforcement officers, and that works in a number of ways now, but over time, I believe some of those could be sent over to civilian employees. Addressing police academy staffing. Right now, the police academy is used by a number of different departments, but only staffed by, or primarily staffed by Syracuse police officers. I would love to see officers from other departments contribute to staffing here at the academy. And finally, creating new community service officer roles and adjusting salaries accordingly. Right now, we have some terrific community service officers who do a wide variety of roles, whether that's security at city facilities, doing some accident response. They are the folks who you take the boot to if you don't pay your parking tickets. But there's a number of different ways that we could expand the role of community service officers, having them be a bridge in the civilianization conversation and help with call diversion. So we could see CSOs responding to non-injury traffic accidents, for example. So this sounds like a lot. I hope I haven't lost any of you, but this sounds like a lot because it is. But the leadership of the Syracuse Police Department knows that the future rests with their ability to be nimble, agile, and plan for the future. And I'm really confident in their ability to do that. Chief Cecil has a terrific team. I was really proud in this process to work with him and work with his team, Deputy Chiefs Rich Shaw, Rich Trudell, Mark Russin, and Julie Shulsky, and Claire McLean from his office, who answered so many calls and emails from us. They've been absolutely terrific to work with, and they have been great partners in this. When I came into office and we convened our first meeting, we brought all those deputies along. We had a lengthy conversation, and we went through line by line, data point by data point, recommendation by recommendation. And then we did it again, and then we did it again. This is a very substantive final product, and I'm pleased to say that we put something together that I think will provide a good background and a good foundation for decision making going forward at the Syracuse Police Department. I look forward to working with the chief and his team on making more of this a reality. So, Chief, it's all yours.
I didn't know I had a speaking role.
All of it.
I was just joking. I knew I did. So listen, I just want to mention, I don't know if I can read my notes. The Matrix Consulting Group was very good to work with. In the study, as the city auditor mentioned, started in 2022. The Matrix Consulting Group was super to work with, as was the city auditor, because they didn't just come in, neither the Matrix Group nor the city auditor didn't come in and say, these look like great things to do them. What they did is sat down with us and worked with these recommendations. And they came up with recommendations, but they also listened to us more than they talked to us about what our challenges were, why we could implement certain things, why we were challenged with implementing other things because of contractual issues or other types of issues. So it was a pleasure to work with both the Matrix Group and the city auditor. And again, the police department has implemented many of the recommendations that are already in the study because it's been going on since 2022. There's actually some recommendations in the study, by the way, that precede even the commissioning of the study itself, that being the alternative response to mental illness. which is one of the big ones in this, one of the big recommendations in here. We started working on that in 2021, working with 911, with service providers out there, to see if we could figure out a way where officers didn't have to respond to every call that came in that had some type of mental illness, some person going through a crisis, that we weren't the experts in dealing with. And it's been 3 years, and we have that in place now. 911 will actually triage calls and send them to other folks, with resources being the primary focus, but clinicians are actually responding to certain calls out there that police are no longer doing. Some of the other recommendations, and I'll tell you, if the city auditor could take crossing guards off of our plate, and parking checkers, and ordinance, and licensing, I will shake his hand over and over again. But just to give you an idea, crossing guards, there's 85, 90 of them out there right now. They still fall under the police department. It may seem like a simple thing, but it's not. Just today, when I was driving home to work, I heard Sergeant Carlos Romain, who does about 3 dozen other things out there, had just left one crossing intersection, one spot, to go to another one, because we cannot leave those up, we can't have nobody there, because children are crossing to go to school. And he was actually covering them, because he oversees them. And if they call in sick, for some reason they can't show up at their designated spot, Sergeant Romain is going around filling those spots in and finding other people to do it. So there are a lot of recommendations. That is a huge one. We'd love to have that no longer under our purview. CSOs, the city auditor mentioned CSOs, they are a tremendously valuable asset to us. There's some at the front desk right now. We have CSOs that are out there actually taking calls. They'll take accidents, criminal mischief, things that don't require an arrest or some other type where you need a police officer. They're out there doing all these different things, yet contractually, we can only pay them a certain amount. I don't, every year they go to contract negotiation to get those their raises. But keep in mind, they're bound by other unions, or other people in that union. So those are some of our constraints. If we could get beyond those, get around those, there's some other recommendations in here we haven't been able to accomplish, but we'd be more than happy to do it. So it's a positive staffing study. And what the city auditor did with his companion piece, again, very positive, things we're looking forward to, things we're looking to implement down the road if we can overcome some of these hurdles.
Thank you, Chief. All right, so with that, I'm happy to take any questions if you have.
Chief, just to clarify, so there was a police sergeant doing crossing guard at a school this week? Is that what you said?
We've overseen the crossing guard since the beginning of time. It's in the city charter. So all 85 of them fall under the police department. And yeah, school started and there were crossing intersections. There were intersections where the crossing guards needed to be. Some of them didn't get there, so we had a sergeant that was moving from one section to another, one crossing to another.
So is that a waste of time of police in your view?
Let me answer that 100%. Now, it certainly is, even to supervise them. And again, I'm not saying they're not valuable. It's a valuable thing to have all these, but they've expanded since I came on to 30 spots to now 85 spots around the city where a crossing guard has to stand there at the beginning of school and at the end of school to make sure kids are safe and crossing the streets. You would think, I would think, everyone always asks me doesn't it fall under the school district? Great question. The city charter was written, I don't know how many years ago, but for some reason they decided to put it in the police department. At the time, it was like Andy Griffin. There were probably 3 intersections they had to cover, so they decided to use the police department. But yeah, it is, I don't want to say a waste of time because it's an important aspect, but it's certainly not something we should be doing. It would be great if it could be moved to some other division or department.
Chief, just to clarify what you're saying, not something that Syracuse Police should be doing, whether it be crossing guards or some of the other positions listed that could be moved more to civilian roles. Are we talking about a certain group of people that, if they weren't doing that, could be doing other kind of police work? Or are we talking about people who just, it would save the department time and resources to not have to manage anymore?
Yeah, so great question. So with crossing guards, it's management of 85 people, but it's more than that. On any given day, 5 or 10 folks don't show up, and that means somebody has to be there. Well, the Sergeant Romain can't cover 10 areas. So what happens? An officer gets dispatched there. An officer that could be taking a call, patrolling his area, preventing crime, is now standing in an intersection. Again, I don't want to say it's not important to get children across the street so to get to school safely. But it's an officer tied up. It could be 5 to 10 officers on any given day tied up on crossing guards. On some of those other things, CSOs, some of the other recommendations in here, yeah, it would free up officers. They could actually go out there and do what officers do, police would.
And I know, appreciate it's not a magic number, as the city auditor explained, but where are we at the moment when it comes to police staffing?
Yeah, great question too. 423 is our budgeted strength. I wrote it down because it changes. That one doesn't change, but the other ones do. 423 is our budgeted strength. That means that's the number we can hire. We currently sit at 387. That's 36 vacancies, but keep in mind, we have 18 individuals that are in that 387 that are in various stages of the academy right now. So the actual vacancy right now is 54, because those officers in those academies are going to be taking calls for months down the road. So we're really sitting at 54 vacancies right now.
Clearly, a lot of this stuff is gonna involve other governments. You wanna do something with civil service, well, that's on another county, so they've gotta make changes. You need to change the city charter. So who do you have lawmakers that are gonna take this on, or do you guys do it?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Alan, because this, and the way I approach most of the work in my office, this is not the end of the conversation, this is the beginning of the conversation. I think that now that we have the data, we have a plan, and we have kind of everyone working on a similar agenda for some of these issues, I think we can now make a more compelling case where we have to, that if we need to make a change, whether it's at the county level, whether it's elsewhere in city government, we can do that. I have been, Councilor Cholman Joe, who's the chairperson of the Public Safety Committee in the council, has told me that there's going to be a committee meeting coming up about this study, and I look forward to that. And I think that that's another good jumping off point to have more of this discussion happening. I think that we need to just get all of the other players that we need in government kind of swimming in the same direction, working off the same, sorry for all the metaphors here, but if we have everyone reading off the same sheet of music, we can get the song out there. And right now, this study is the same sheet of music that everyone can read off of. So I think that we can get folks moving in the right direction on a lot of these issues, especially our friends across the street in the civil service office and elsewhere.
To Ellen's point there, I know you said just the start of the conversation, but how difficult would it be to ensure that we can still have civilian hires to fill out these different roles, given that, while police might have its own specific struggles with its vacancies, there's vacancies in a lot of different government positions.
Yeah.
So how do we make sure that works, or get the Syracuse City School District on board, just as an example?
Absolutely. There are vacancies all across city government, and we are trying to be very creative in how we recruit new people and bring new people in. I've been meeting with some folks just as an example, meeting with some folks who work with refugees and new Americans to try to get them into jobs in city government, getting them taking civil service tests so they can be part of our public service family here. I think that we need to realize what the different jobs that exist do and who we need to have filling those jobs. Our law enforcement officers are some of our highest trained, most expensive employees. We need to get them doing the work that is most essential that people without training and experience do. And I love Sergeant Romaine. He's one of my favorite people out there. Is it the highest, best use of his time to be filling in for crossing guards? Probably not, but he has a lot of other law enforcement responsibilities to be doing. So where else can we get these folks? Well, can we get people who are trained in HR? Can we get folks in the door as their entry-level job as crossing guards, and then find the standouts there and train them and get them lined up for promotions or other roles here in the department or elsewhere in city government? Absolutely. We just need to be bringing more people in and showing them, hey, the city of Syracuse is a great place to work, our fabulous employer, and you can have any number of career opportunities. In the back is Debbie Summers from my staff, who came to city government as an information aide in the Parks Department and worked her way up. She was a deputy finance commissioner, water commissioner. I like to say she's done every job other than drive a snowplow at this point. So, you can have fascinating, interesting careers in city government, no matter where you come in the door. We just need to get more people coming in the door and finding the right opportunities for them.
Have you guys talked to the school district about this in any kind of formal way yet, and what's the response been?
It was kind of like this. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, the conversation just started a few months ago because every year we kind of run into this. We started to talk, it wasn't necessarily with the school district yet. With the talk has begun with, we've seen over the past couple months, and I don't remember what they were, but city charters, little things in the city charter have been changed. So suddenly we realized upstairs, I'm talking on the fourth floor with the chiefs, wait a minute, the city charter can be changed. So we've started talking to the city attorneys, and obviously the mayor and the deputy mayor, to see if this is another one of those ones that we can restart the process of changing. And again, maybe it wouldn't fall under the school district, I don't know where it would fall, but things can be changed in the city charter, and we have begun the conversation with that.
Chief, the department recently made changes to its scheduling system for officers. Was that a result of these recommendations at all, or is that separate? And then how is that working towards some of these changes that have been mentioned?
Yeah, so once again, it preceded the final draft, because it got implemented. We already knew we were doing it. It was a contractual thing. But the draft obviously said that as well. Many police departments across this nation are doing 10-hour days because it works. So it was part of our plan to do it. The union was on board. We knew it would be efficient for us to do that, and it has been very successful.
Alex, on the money end of things, it looks like a lot of these things would save money, but there might be some things that would cost money, like new technology and things along those lines. Have you looked at any of the numbers yet to see whether this would be a wash or whether it would require an investment from the city?
I don't view these recommendations necessarily in a vacuum of, well, one thing is going to save money, one thing's going to cost money. We have to do, these three things to be able to afford this one thing. Yes, some things will save a lot of money. Some things require a bigger upfront investment, but that upfront investment leads to a greater degree of efficiency down the road, where you may see a longer-term cost savings. For example, having a case management system. There is always an upfront cost for software programs when they come in, but could that upfront cost ultimately be defrayed because you have, fewer and fewer officers, filling out paperwork or going through a spreadsheet to try to keep track of information when it could just be popped in on a tablet or something along the way. So there may be a longer-term savings in a lot of the recommendations that ultimately do have somewhat of an upfront cost. And Conrad, so I have one thing to your question. I've shared this study with the council, and I will be making a very clear point to them. We've revised the city charter any number of times over the years. I think last year actually they revised it to guarantee my office had a budget for outside counsel. So revising the city charter is a doable activity. And I've brought this to the council, and I will be pushing them to make a change to move the crossing guards elsewhere. In my parking ticket study earlier this year, we recommended moving parking checkers and crossing guards to a new city-like Department of Transportation function that's in charge of roadway activities. And I still maintain I think it would be a great landing spot for a lot of these activities that don't have a natural home in some of the departments where they're currently operating.
How does this relate to managing overtime, and if at all, when it comes to our officers needing to log overtime to fill some of these positions that could maybe be taken over by civilians?
I'll let the chief get into the specifics on that, but I think broadly, what you see is if we can use our resources more efficiently and effectively, if we have folks performing the functions that they are specifically trained to do, we're going to wind up with, it is going to have I think will have a beneficial impact on the overtime situation, just because you wind up with people doing the jobs that they need to be doing more efficiently and more effectively.
Yeah. No, 100%. And just to mention, He mentioned, the city auditor mentioned case management system. Another example is a record management system, an RMS system, which we've been looking at prior to this study. What it does is allow the officers to write the reports more swiftly, get back into service. Right now we use the county, which is a great program, but it's getting old and it's not off the shelf. It's not one of these high-level ones that most departments are using around the country. Meaning this, and I'll just give you one example. If you're going to the same house for another type of call, let's say it's domestic, these RMSs, the advanced one that we're looking at, can actually start writing the report for you on the way there, filling in who the people are that are there, the address, the time, the date, all these things that take time for the officer to actually write them in, so that all he or she does when they get there, figure out what went on and write the narrative. And even that, with this new improved RMS, you can dictate into a mic. Because as you can tell by the way I'm speaking, many people speak 20 times faster than they write. So you get people back. So this is an example of that. That RMS system, by the way, costs $500,000. But does it save money in the long run? Well, it does save money because officers are back out there on the road doing what they're supposed to be doing, taking calls. As far as personnel, I think, as the city auditor mentioned, if we're more efficient, we're going to save overtime money. And I know, Connor, you probably didn't answer this question, but he already let me know he was going to ask it. So, if you want me to answer it for the 10-hour day schedule, sure. Yeah. So, early on, we touted that it would save money. So we're less than a year into it now. We touted that it would save money with minimum staffing numbers. Minimum staffing, by the way, are the numbers of officers we know we need on a shift to make things safe, to take all the calls, to do proactive work. It has reduced drastically the number of minimum staffing officers on shift because of the overlap. During peak time, the overlap of these 10-hour shifts. Another thing that it's done is reduce the number of training hours. Here's what typically would happen. Say firearms training. We have to take 10 people off a shift to do firearms training, or in-service training, or EVOC training. Well, those 10 people off a patrol shift, you can't just take 10 people off and run a shift. So you would have to do what we call backfill. Bring people in on overtime, put them on the shift, have them take the calls and do all the other police work while those individuals were training. With these 10-hour days, every 2 times every month, we have what are called power days, which means those 2 shifts overlap each other and we're there on the same day. And which means we could have a large amount of people there, enough so that we can handle the patrol aspects and bring a bunch of people in off the road and train them on the job with no overtime whatsoever. So it has saved money. But I want to make this clear, because I've had this discussion with the deputy mayor and the mayor multiple times. Next year, it doesn't mean that next year our budget's we're gonna hit our budget. It doesn't mean we're not gonna be over again, because things have happened in the city. Not to mention homicides, but downtown itself. We are putting on, I know this isn't part of the study, but I just want to make it clear, next year we could be over budget again because of the massive amounts of manpower we're putting downtown to deal with different crises that are going on over there. We're putting out a detail every Friday and Saturday night, sometimes Thursday night, that we are calling the after hours party detail to address these areas that are cropping up all over the city. 4141 South Salon Street was an example. I believe we are actually preventing homicides with this detail, but this detail is overtime, and this detail costs money. But if it saves lives, we're going to do it. And the mayor's fully aware of all this too. But just want to mention this. All these cost savings things we're getting on one end, there are things happening in the city that are forcing us to spend money elsewhere, and we may not hit budget again next year for overtime.
The study matrix recommends eliminating the residency requirement for civilian employees as well as the first 5 years of the contract. I just wondered, you didn't address that particular recommendation. So what are your thoughts on it, Alexander, and also your thoughts on it?
First of all, it's in the contract that exists now, so it's not something that you could, even if someone wanted to, snap their fingers and change, because it's baked into the contract. There are a lot of things that are baked into the existing contract that can't necessarily be changed without going through contract negotiations once again. I do think that it's good to have a residency requirement. I support the residency requirement. I think that our city is typically better off when we have the people who work for it, the people who protect it, living in the city of Syracuse. And I think that it gives people a greater perspective and a greater sense of ownership when they are law enforcement officers, that they are protecting their own community and their own neighborhoods. And financially, I think it makes sense because that means we are sending less and less money out of the city on the highway at the end of the shift. And that money is staying here, often paying property taxes and making a difference in the neighborhoods that we serve. I know neighborhoods where a number of police officers live. I know a block up on the north side where 2 now retired officers live, and they keep an eye on things, they're engaged with their neighbors, and it just becomes a greater place to live. I support keeping the residency requirement, and again, it's in the contract at this point, so I don't see that being changed anytime soon.
No comment. I mean, listen, you all know I'm at the end of my career, so you're gonna get me in hot water anyways, but I'll be totally honest. I grew up in the city, as probably all of you know, went to corporate high school, went to Syracuse University, lived in the city for 28 years, while I was a police officer, moving around and going 3 different homes, and loved the city. Recently moved out several years ago, maybe a few more than that, but I love the city, and it was fine being both an officer and living in the city. This is in the contract, it's the city auditor mentioned, it's not going away. And I won't have, I don't necessarily, I think there's benefits to officers living in the city, but I don't know if they outweigh, the negatives of having that rule in there. The mayor will get upset that I'm saying this, but, again, I see the value of it. Keep in mind this, the city gave some very, very high pay raises to the officers, in that contract. And they traded that, for residency. So they got residency, but the officers are making, far more than I ever did when I came on the job. So, that was the trade-off. But let me just put it this way too. And I'll just say, I don't necessarily care for the residency. But keep in mind, we have far greater challenges than that. It was just 3-4 years ago, three Joe Floyd. The folks taking the test, the civil service test, we used to pull a list that had 700 people on it. That's what we used to draw from, 700 people. The last test we released in the very most recent academy that's started had 72 people on it. I think that's like 160% drop. That's our biggest challenge right now. Is very few people are taking the civil service test. Many people have decided to take different pathways, job pathways, and we have to just do a better job at recruiting and getting that and trying to turn that tide, because everyone in the county tries to get those 72 people. And keep in mind this: out of the 72 people, we typically lose 40% of them in the physical fitness test. So the 72 people turns out to be about 35 people, and then everyone in the county, every agency in the county tries for those 35 people. So the far bigger challenge than the residency is getting people to take the test, getting them to pass the physical fitness test, getting them to want to join the Syracuse Police Department, and all those challenges that come with it. We have a step above our competition right now, though, because we have the cadet program. There's 16 people in our cadet program right now that are in this building right now, doing a real job, just not answering phones and things like that. They're learning police work, they're taking police reports, they're going out into the neighborhoods when we have a burglary spree like we're having on the east side right now, and going door to door, hanging door hangers on the doors to let people know this is happening, here's what you can do to safeguard it, here's what you need to look out for. They're doing all that kind of stuff, so that by the time they reach the age where they can take the civil service test, they can take the civil service test, and we can bring them on, and they'll already be part of our family. So that's 16 people that have already decided they want to be Syracuse police officers. That cadet program is in its 2nd year, and it's going to just continue to grow. So we're doing things to overcome these challenges that we have out there, but the residency is not the biggest one that we're facing.
And I just want to add one more point to that. That's one of the reasons why we put in here having a Syracuse police officer specific civil service list. Because if we had a list that was specifically for Syracuse police officers, we would not be competing with all these other departments. That same group of people, we would have a list that is just for us. There are people who know what the rules are, that there was a residency requirement, how that they need to pass the the physical fitness test and have an interest in doing urban policing. And I'm really eager to get to work hopefully with our friends in the county to try to come up with a way to do a Syracuse police officer specific civil service list so that we can make that happen and get the right people in the door knowing it is just specifically for this department.
Are these things other communities are already doing? Is Syracuse behind the times, or where do we like fit into the whole thing? I mean, are other cities doing this stuff already?
I'm proud to say that the Syracuse Police Department, and I'm not saying this just because I live here and work with these folks every day, but I'm very proud to say that the Syracuse Police Department is not just one of the best police departments in New York State, but one of the best police departments in the entire country. I think they're ahead of the curve on a number of issues, and it's a real credit to the leadership of Chief Cecil and his team, because when there are opportunities to innovate, when there are opportunities to make a difference and try something new, they are always at the forefront of jumping into it. They're not afraid to try something like with changing the schedule. They bake that into the contract, and I think people are seeing it pay dividends on the streets every day. They're not afraid of innovation, they're not afraid of ideas, and they're really eager to get to work and try new things, and I think it's a real credit to these folks and how they run this department every day.
I'm sorry, are you gonna ask me? Did you want me to answer?
Well, I was just, the other thing I was like, best case scenario, what thing do you jump into first? Of all of this big list here, what do you jump into first?
Well,
You think that could be done quickly and,
again, I think if you go, I mean, if you go through, I can't go through every one of these right now, but there are numerous, actually, it might have been in the report that I sent to the auditor. There are numerous recommendations in various categories that we've already implemented. So which one that we haven't implemented that we could, I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that standing in front of you right now. Oh, well, I mean, moving the crossing guards.
I will be working on that, I promise.
Chief, just with respect to some of those changes, any concerns from the union at all about some of those positions being unionized police officers doing that kind of work that would then change and be taken out of their hands?
Yeah, there's always that possibility. We work very closely with the PBA President Joe Moran, and we have for several years because we started, another thing that we started doing when no one else was doing was bringing back retired police officers to watch cameras. We have it almost around the clock now. All these cops cameras, we have 500 cops cameras around the city, but they weren't being watched, they weren't being monitored. They just were being looked at after a crime occurred. Now we have retired Syracuse police officers watching these cameras on almost a 24/7 period, so that they can almost prevent stuff. So they can see somebody with a gun, they can see someone about to terrorize a house, things like that, and we can move in and prevent crime. So when we did that, we worked with the union because we knew that they may struggle with the fact that we're bringing back officers that they thought, for positions that they thought maybe an officer should be watching that camera. And then as we've continued to do, we put SPOs down in property room. We actually brought back the very officers that retired from the property room, brought them back as soon as they retired, and now they're in the property room, so we don't have to have officers down there. They're SPOs, special police officers, work with the union on it. So any one of these things, we would certainly, the first step would be to talk to the PBA president, make sure he doesn't have an issue, because if you do creep too far, there is a chance that the union may say, that's a little bit too much. Now you're taking away police officers' jobs.
I just want to add to that. I had the opportunity to talk about this with Joe Moran, and a great conversation. I think that he is I think he understands that he wants to see his folks doing what they are intended to do as law enforcement officers. I think he is cognizant that it is, an era where we need to have law enforcement officers doing law enforcement work, not necessarily just behind a desk, not necessarily being back up crossing guard. We need to have folks doing the work that's important. I think he's a very reasonable and understanding person when it comes to this, and I think there's a lot of room to have those conversations with the PBA going forward.
Thank you, everybody.
I was gonna ask, if I get one more in, when the council put this in this study on the budget, I think it came at a time when the union had a campaign where they were trying to get more budgeted positions, saying that we need more. We were just starting, I think, and I think the idea was shift at some point along the line of what the study would do in terms of overall staff?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so you're right, you're absolutely right. When this whole thing started, the two counselors that were behind it, I think everyone thought that at the end of the day, they were going to say, here's the number. This is the number you need to do everything they've been doing and do it well. But I don't think anything shifted. This company very early on, Matrix very early on said, we're going to show you how to be more efficient. At the end of the day, though, we're not giving you this magic number because we won't know what it is either. As the city auditor mentioned, it's a magic number. It's called that for a reason. You don't really know. I can tell you from my standpoint, having just I guess I just did 40 years on the job. We don't need the 515 that we had one time in the 80s. But I think we need somewhere around 450 to do all these different things we're doing. But we don't really need that number right now because we can't even find the number of recruits to get to that 450. That's why the number of 423 was just brought up as kind of an arbitrary number to see if we could at least get to that. I don't think, again, to specifically answer your question, nothing really changed during this early on. They said there would be no magic number. It would just be how you can be more efficient with your personnel.